want to show up. It's not about them. It's not about the worry of them cheating or them going elsewhere, but it's I want to show up because I want to keep them.
Oh. What are you laughing at?
How tall are you?
I'm 5'8". 5'8" on a good day. What are you?
I'm 5'9".
Yeah, there's about an inch between us. Or more. Come on, don't beat me up like this.
No, I thought you were as tall as me. I didn't think you were shorter than me.
Short king, I am. Short king. Okay.
Your brother's short as well.
Youngest one actually is like the runt, but he's tall. The other one, James, is about my height, and Elliot is.
Is mum and dad short as well?
Mum's not a short woman, normal size woman, I'd say, and then dad's my height-ish. He's got shorter as he's got older. You know, they just kind of.
Yeah. Adam's about 5'10".
Is he? Is he?
Yeah, he's really short.
Whoa. Hey, you're just fighting with these, huh? Right, I was going to introduce you, but fuck yourself. Okay. Angharad, I'm going to start with you. So, like, obviously, you're everyone's known you as confidence and relationships with Angharad. Yes. Is that right?
Yes, that's me.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm really good, actually. It's nice to be here, and
nice.
I'm in my flow at the moment. So.
Are you?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I just want to say thanks for coming today. I think I'm super excited for this episode because there's a lot of learnings I'm going to take from this. I think it's going to educate people on relationships, on what is a good relationship, what is a bad relationship, and what are bad traits and good traits as well, that how we can work on those in relationships. So I'm super pumped for that. So thanks for coming in.
No problem.
You just come back from a holiday, right?
Yes.
Is that why you're in a good flow?
I think so. My life is 100 mile an hour. It always is. That's sort of where I work best sometimes, but I can also be my own worst enemy. So I took on a lot. I had a lot going on between just life, work, everything. So a week off was well needed, and it was just lovely to get away and recharge. And anyone who knows me knows I am a lover of Christmas. So
you're right into it now then.
I haven't put the tree up yet, but who knows?
When is it not okay to put the tree up? Do they actually say officially?
I don't know what that saying is. Is it 12? No, that isn't. Before Christmas, something, so many days before Christmas, and then it should be up until after New Year.
Okay.
But
not in November though?
I mean, my tree goes up end of November, yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I'll get mine up in December, definitely. Some stage. I'm a typical boy. I'll just get it up, you know? Anyway. Well, obviously today we want to talk a bit about relationships. And I think who better than to have you in to do that. So obviously you've got your own experiences from relationship, because I assume that's why you become a coach.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, the background sort of started as didn't have the best relationship with my mum. Or I did until my parents separated, and then that got quite challenging growing up. And when I went into my adult life, I sort of made a promise to myself that I wasn't going to be like her. So I done a lot of discovery work and to understand my childhood and that sort of thing. Very lucky to have the father that I did, because he was mum and dad. But yeah, so I had a lot of that. And then just through the course of life growing up, I've had good relationships and
not so good.
Not so good,
yeah.
should we say, which, took a lot of learning from it. And if I can do anything to just support women to not go through, or at least to be aware of what I went through, so they know red flags and what is acceptable and not acceptable. So, and I've always had a joy of understanding mental health and well-being. That's sort of my love and passion. I've always been into that, but the coaching to make other people aware of themselves and encourage themselves to be better is what I'm here for.
Amazing. Okay. I hope that doesn't kick in. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear, because I think it's bringing that awareness to these situations as well. And one thing not all of us do is probably self-reflect.
No.
What did I do well in that relationship? What can I take as a learning what a lot of people may do is probably just dig their head into the ground and ignore it and kind of go, okay, that's the norm now. You know, maybe if they've been hurt or if you've maybe been hurt and they're going, okay, just accept that now. That kind of delves into that self-worth thing then, right?
Yeah, definitely. And even the worst relationships in the world, even if you have been, you know, in a horrendous relationship where maybe you've been mentally abused or you've been physically assaulted, anything, they're still learning to take from there of what not to accept and also what you were doing in that situation, and you need to look after yourself better and to know your self-worth. And that's where I love my relationship work, but even the people that come to me and that want to look after and work on their relationship, it's generally their confidence that needs to be worked on, so they know their self-worth, so that they can show up better to their relationship and better. I know I'm not going to confess to being some sort of guru in seriously traumatic relationships. That's where you need a counsellor. You know, I'm a coach, and they're very different things. So I work with people that maybe they've fallen off the bandwagon or they're off the path, and they want to get their relationship back. If it's a really traumatic experience and you know they're being sort of in an abusive relationship, then I'm probably not the person for you. You need to go and get, you know, counselling and
totally different. Okay, like one thing I think I've noticed, and this might come from maybe the awareness of social media now. We kind of have a bit more of a knowledge on what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. But I don't know what the actual percentages of like marriages that stick together. I think it's 50-50, is that right?
It's worse than that now. I think it's 60% or thereabouts, probably a little bit more of marriages end. But that does go down. So I think it sort of flips. So 60% first marriages fail, 60% of first marriages fail, and then 40% of second marriages fail. So it's still in that sort of that 50-50 bracket, but you got more chance of your second one.
Hopefully you learn from the first to take into the second.
Hopefully.
What do you think then, for instance, for long-lasting relationships, what are common good behaviors that keep relationships healthy, loving, and long-term?
It's communication. And that people say, oh, we talk all the time, but sitting down and having dinner together and talking about your day isn't communication. That's low-level communication. We need high-level communication. We need to really dig down into what's going on in our minds, and being able to communicate and feel that you can be vulnerable with your partner, so that you can say, actually, this is how I'm feeling, and communicating when you are looking for solutions, not when you're just bringing problems. So anyone that is really struggling in the relationship that comes to me is usually a breakdown of communication or feeling safe enough that they can be vulnerable to communicate. So long-lasting relationships is all around that communication, and you need more than love in a relationship. You can't depend on love. Whenever I talk to people about relationships, or people that want to go into the dating world that maybe are what I would consider like an avoidant, they're looking for that 10 out of 10 relationship. They're looking for it to be sort of high energy, the fun, the excitement, but all that comes with danger. So we can't stay in that heightened sense of emotion all the time. You need a relationship that's sort of that 6, 7, that can push up to the 8 and 9 when you've been on a holiday, or you've done something fun, or you've had a life event, but also can sustain being down at a 2 or 3 when your relationship isn't your priority because life or work has got in the way, or a traumatic event has happened to you where it's hard. So that's what I always say is people chase that high energy, but actually we want to be able to sustain a relationship, and that is year 7. That's where you want to be, really.
Do you think that kind of connects then, though, Nara, to, let's just say we have friends growing up that, like, good time friends, like party friends, and then you've got your friends who are there when times are tough, and they're the ones that, like, you can truly be your ugly self, and they're like no judgment zone. You're like, let's lean in and let's normalize this. I think there's 2 different friends that we look into. So would you say that's kind of like a different analogy of that?
Definitely. Like, if you think back to when you were growing up, you had friends which were your Saturday night friends that you went out and partied with, but then they probably weren't your best friends, the people that you could pick up the phone to if you were really stuck and you knew they would be there. Like, I know I've got a particular friend that I don't see him. I probably see him 2-3 times a year, but I can pick up the phone to him. I could be in Inverness and be like, I really need you to come get me, and he would, you know. So they are your, you know, they're your solid friends. You don't need to be there every day, but they're really good friends because you've worked on the foundations of that friendship. With a relationship, if you check out for that length of time, it's going to fall apart. So 100%. That's the only thing I would say is friendships, they need work, but your relationship, if it's like a house, you buy a house, you invest into this house, and then if you don't maintain the house, it will eventually fall apart. A relationship is exactly the same. If you don't maintain your relationship and you don't look after it and you don't look after one another, it will fall apart.
So you think then, for instance, a lot of people just expect it to be right because of that love connection at the start, or lust or anything like that, where they go, I don't need to work on it, it's just should be flowing. And when it doesn't flow anymore, a lot of people walk away.
100%. When that sort of honeymoon period wears off, and that can be different for everyone, and what I would say is the longer that honeymoon period that everyone thinks happens, the more danger it is. When you can get into your ebbs and flows and you can just get into your normal quicker, is actually better. But that's, you can only get to feeling comfortable to be normal if you communicate. So you will still have the lust and the excitement and the, you know, that does come with the fear of losing that person or them going elsewhere. That is okay. Like, you need a little bit of that in a relationship, because you can get complacent, and that's not a good place to be either. When you just think, oh, relationship's fine, you need that little bit of fear. It's, you know, it
keeps you on your toes, essentially.
Lions, like, tigers and bears.
You know, keeps you, like, even though you know that's your person, you still want to put your best self there. Not get complacent.
Still want to show up. It's not about them. It's not about the worry of them cheating or them going elsewhere, but it's I want to show up because I want to keep them. Not that I'm stopping them leaving. Is I'm going to show up because I want to keep them. You know, that's where you want to be.
It's a kind of like you want to be a better person for them. I heard it once off someone else, and I totally agreed with it, especially as I'm speaking from a male perspective, is if you couldn't have sex with that person, would you still want to spend time with them? And I think, you know, for a lot of people, including myself, you know, you all at the start of a relationship or early days, and you want to just, you know, you want to express yourself so much, you want that sex. And I think sometimes it can not ruin a relationship, but it's like if you doing something like that, rushing so soon, you've surpassed so many foundational things in it. You know what I mean? You don't, not essentially a red flag, but like, that's not acceptable, or this is acceptable. And because you're like, you know, this person's on a pedestal, essentially, until...
Yeah, definitely. And that lust is dangerous. It's a really dangerous place to be in. So when you think of a relationship, you go into 4 houses. So you go into house 1 where you like them. You go into the club or in the bar and you see someone and you like them, you fancy them. And then you start performing a showtime to try and get their reaction. So then you go into stage 2 where you like them and they like you. That's where the lust comes. That's where you both fancy each other. There's tension, there's sexual chemistry, and you'll go over and above to try and excite one another, to keep each other. But we want to try and get into that connection house where we can connect to then get to number 4, which is ultimately compatibility. So just because you fancy someone and you want to sleep with them doesn't mean that you're compatible. You know, but stage 2 is that excitement and the energy that comes with it. Sometimes we can forget about stage 2 and stage 3, which is sort of your honeymoon period is house 1, but And that's fine, because a lot of people just want that.
Yeah.
But so many people don't communicate that. Don't communicate that I just want to get to house 2.
Yeah.
I don't want house 3 and 4. I don't want that level of commitment. So then that communication doesn't happen. But, and I don't know, I think this does happen more for women, is we like to think we're going to change them. Or they'll come round to it. Yeah. Or, you know, they'll change. I can convince them.
Is that kind of that, you know, that bad boy mentality that we hear a lot? I've heard is women love a bad boy, they try to change a bad boy. To an extent. It's
the excitement.
Yeah.
We're chasing people that are, you know, up there at the 8, 9, 10, you know, that level of relationship, which is almost dangerous. If you think, just being, you know, a child.
Yeah.
There's excitement in doing something that you're not meant to.
Yeah.
So, but you can only sustain that for so long.
Yeah.
You know, that's not reality. And you do have people that think they can maintain that, and if that's what they want to do. I'm not here to judge anyone. But
that's more of that push-pull thing then, though, because you're like getting a little bit of what you want, and then...
Yeah, and you end up diluting your authenticity to try and meet their needs in a bid for them to change for you. And then you end up losing yourself and losing the whole relationship, because you've become someone that you're not to try and bring them into your life.
Yeah.
But the more you have to do that, the more you dilute yourself.
Yeah.
And then you end up losing yourself.
That's really interesting. And I think from a guy's perspective, one thing I think men we like to be problem solvers. We like to fix things. And I think as well, I've done it definitely, is we connect on potential of someone. Like we connect on the potential of this person they could be an amazing mother one day, or a father for a woman, or you know, or we could have. So you're looking at as if you've met this person on that connection, and then you're like shooting forward 10 years. Yeah. Which realistically should be in the moment, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You need to. It's just like life. You know, you've got to be happy with what you've got to be able to strive for something else. If you can't love someone the way they are today, there's no point trying to change them, because you can try and they can change for you, but that's not going to be maintained because they haven't done it for themselves. So falling in love with someone's potential is the number one way you're going to break your own heart.
Falling in love with someone's potential, yes.
Falling in love with someone's potential is the number one way you will break your own heart. And going back to relationships that you can learn anything from, even if, so in my case, I was with someone and he cheated, but I fell in love with his potential. You know, I knew people maybe try to dilute the truth in the beginning, but you know, everyone, and even back, I think now, like everyone told me he had great potential. That's what I was told. He has great potential. Yeah. If he finds the right one. Oh. But he continued to do it. Yeah. But I thought I could change him. I fell in love with the potential, which was, ultimately, he broke my heart, but I had responsibility to play in that. But what I would say is if I never went through that heartbreak, I would never have got to being the person I am today that is so confident in myself, and not stage confidence, but actually just inner confidence that when I met my now partner, we had those really deep, serious conversations from day one. And maybe from the outsider, they were like, God, what's going on with them? You know, but I was so adamant that I was not going to go into a relationship looking for house number 4 and ending up in house number 2.
Yes, true.
So I pushed through house 2 and I was like, I'm going to house 3. I'm going to solve this communication. I'm going to see if we are compatible. Because if we're not, I'm not wasting my time.
I like that a lot. And it takes a lot of balls to do that as well. Credit to you. What are the type of questions you would ask someone then to kind of know, okay, this person, we get it, we're on the same wavelength. They're not just, wasting my time.
So that very much depends on you as a person. So what I always say to anyone that comes to me is, what are your values? And it's amazing. So many people are like, what's a value? What does that mean? And And I think sometimes if you think of a value, you either go to high value item or low value item. So it's where you place yourself on that scale. Do you place yourself as a high value item, or do you place yourself as like good value for money? So it's always, if you think about what are the 5 things that come to your mind when you think of yourself and what you need, like, want, what are the 5 things? So for me, number 1 is honesty, teamwork, communication, family, and travel and excitement. Nice. They that's me. Yeah. So and they will sort of, number one for me is always honesty, but things changed along the way of whether, like travel at the minute. I've just been on a lovely holiday, so that's probably down at number 5 now.
Because it's been ticked.
Whereas before going on there was family, because I was doing loads with the family. So, but trust and honesty are really, really important to me, and communication. So when I started dating with Adam, it was very much like, what do you want out of life? Where are you going? What do you want to do? What are your ambitions? That sort of thing. I understand if you are right for me. And, I suppose I was quite lucky. I knew him for a long time before that anyway. So it was a bit easier that I could tell if he weren't lying, because what people do then, I always use this analogy, is that I could come to you and we could be on a first date and I'm like, oh, I really love Harry Potter. And you're like, oh, Quidditch is like the best thing ever. And Dumbledore, you haven't got a clue what it is. So many people pretend to be someone that they're not because they have that lust. So
they're just trying to make it work for this scenario.
Yeah.
And again, like when you talk about lust, and we can talk about is the difference between chemistry and connection. I think when that chemistry is hit though, it's like you've just taken a drug and you're lost for a little bit, and I do believe, is it something like, only a certain amount of months someone can hold this image till the mask comes off and the reality of who they are.
Yeah, 100%. And that is the problem with chemistry, is you can't fight it. It's science. You can't decide who you fancy. You can't decide who you're attracted to. That just becomes, that's who you are. Until you sort of learn what your red flags are, then you can steer yourself slightly. But chemistry, you can't fight it.
Explain it. So chemistry, would that be like, the wild sex and the up and down, like, the chasing someone or really falling them, and then on top of that, if again, I heard and listened to things and speak to yourself and how it is, asking yourself the question on top of that is like, what do you actually like about this person? And if you have to really think about it and you don't know, it's probably chemistry. Yeah,
100%. And even now, like, you can, if you're in a long-term relationship, you turn around to your partner and say, do you still fancy me? Hopefully they say yes. It depends. But also, why do you love me? And it shouldn't just be, because you're pretty or because you've got good legs or all the superficial things. No, actually, why do you love me? What is it that you still love about the relationship and about each other? But chemistry is very difficult. But also chemistry is the sweet shop when you're a child. When people say that, you can't fight chemistry, well, you can, because you can't stop it coming. You can't stop yourself wanting the sweets. But when you are old enough and mature enough, we should be able to go, actually, that's not a good choice. It's like going to the club and you see a pretty girl. You can say she's a pretty girl, you can tell your mate she's a pretty girl, but you don't act on it. You don't have to act on that chemistry, because you should know you've got something better at home.
If you're in a relationship.
If you're in a relationship, sorry,
if you're single and the chemistry is like so strong, you're lost between the two. How do you differentiate, for instance, the difference between chemistry and connection, if someone was listening now?
So chemistry and connection is, can you be your true authentic self for them? And depending on what you want, if you want a casual relationship, you don't need to ask yourself that question. But if you are looking for a more serious long-term relationship, ask yourself, can I be my true authentic self for this person? Can I show up when I'm feeling a 3? I know that I'm not going to be greeted with, what are you doing here? Or what's going on? And if you were constantly having to show up, if you're constantly having to be sort of your acting as an 8, if you are always sort of on edge, worrying about what you look like, how you appear, what you say, depending on what that person is like, it's very difficult. That it usually comes down to your superficial. So, for instance, for a girl, from my point of view, if you constantly feeling that you have to dress up, you have to have your hair done, you have to have your makeup done, it's very difficult then to step back from that. If you put yourself in that position for so long and you don't try and break that barrier down, you're still living in that lust. You still want them to lust you because you haven't got the connection. Whereas when you build the connection, you take lust to love, but you got to do that with connection. If you are still fighting to keep them, as in you're worried about them going elsewhere, we're still in that lust period, and it is very dangerous because we want to be liked. We want people to want us. It's a natural feeling. We all want to be wanted.
Yeah. And I think that connects then to if you do have people pleasing tendencies, then that's hard then because you're trying to break free from this. If you just love life and love people, it's hard then because you still want the best for people at the same time, even though maybe that's not the perfect fit for you. I think from my own experiences as a people pleaser that I've definitely struggled with, this isn't quite right for me, but she's a good person. Yeah. And I'll try and make this work. Yeah. And it's always ended wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a difficult one. It's interesting. I was talking with a client earlier this week, and we were talking about relationships and around when you are being unauthentic, when you are being the person that you think society want you to be, or you're being the person you think that said person wants you to be, and then they reject you. That rejection really hurts because it's not the rejection of you then, it's the rejection of your effort, of I've done absolutely everything that you've told me and you wanted me to be, I'm still not good enough. Whereas when you push back into your authenticity and you are the person that you want to be, that rejection doesn't hurt as much because you are yourself. This is me. I can't be anything else because this is my true authentic self. If I'm not enough for you, then that's okay. But you have to learn to love that as well, that you can be enough just the way you are. But society tells us we all have to fit in. And we all have to do the same, and we all have to be little minions. Yeah. And it's not reality. It's really hard then. But if we can get to being our authentic self and loving that, and also just being confident in it, even if you don't love it, as long as you're confident in it, that you know yourself as well, then we can get there. It's like I asked that client, when you go into sort of the dating world, what works for you? And they were like, well, being this confident, cocky person, that's your 8 9s, that's your red flags, whereas, and then they were like, but that's not me. And that's where the relationships always break down.
You're saying about your client?
Yes. And then just talking about people pleasing. So I had a client that was a massive people pleaser, and particularly in the family, which is a really tricky place. So when we are people pleasing amongst our family, and we don't want to fall out with the family because either we live with them or they're important to us, but they're also quite triggering people. So I'm sure all of us can think of someone that is in our family that really triggers us. And for this particular lady, she couldn't leave because she lived with them in the same household, but it was just learning her self-worth. So she knew when she wasn't being treated with the respect that she needed. And through doing that with that particular family member, then when she was in a really tricky situation with within the in-laws then, she said to me that her first instinct is usually, I need to put the shit, I'm off. But because she had learned her self-worth against her family member, she could use that and understand that actually this isn't my problem, and I don't need the in-laws to like me. I'm going to stand up for myself. I'm not going to worry about pleasing them. What that actually done then was earned the respect that she deserved, and they're in a much better position than her just going, oh yeah, that's fine, just fine, and them just walking over it, being really disrespectful, unintentionally sometimes. But because she knew her self-worth, she knew how to not let people walk over her, and she knew she was a people pleaser, but she knew her own self-worth. She was able then to carry that into other relationships. So, which
is amazing.
Yeah.
Because it's like one of those things, right? Like, so these people that, you know, they're not as if they intentionally try to do it, like maybe family, but like they just know, okay, I can kind of walk over this person, I get away with it. And then you put a boundary in place. They're like, what's up with so and so? She's acting different. It's like, no, she's just found her voice. She's found her worth to go, hang on, that's not acceptable. No. I'm not going to allow that anymore. No. And some people erupt. It's like, good on that person, you know? So.
And so many relationships are built on people breaking down their own barriers. So the foundation is broken boundaries of so many relationships. And then when you start putting those boundaries back up, people are like, oh no, I don't like that person. But you weren't being authentic. You weren't showing your values. You were just diluting yourself to be what they wanted you to be. And relationships end. You know, I would never say to any of my clients to leave a relationship, but I do see relationships within them, and I'm like, you need to put your boundaries in.
Speak up.
You need to put your boundaries in. And then we can try and fix that. But if we're not being authentic and we're not to ourselves, you will either end a relationship at some point or live a miserable life.
Pick your poison then.
So, you know?
Again, like this, you know, something that we can talk about now is, you know, that I don't know if it stems from childhood, but attachment styles. Explain the attachment styles to someone who wouldn't know.
So there is a lot of theory and evidence to say it goes back to childhood. Personally, from an anecdotal point of view, it can come from anywhere, any relationship, you know, because ultimately it's triggers. So your attachment style is how you're triggered. So you've got three main ones. You've got your secure attachment, which is where you can see your partner go out on a night out. You might be like, oh, okay, just let me know you're home safe. But, you know, you have those small worries, which are normal, but you don't react to them. Or if there is a serious argument, you can understand that we're going to have arguments and we can fix it. So you're secure in yourself, you're secure in your relationship. Then you have your anxious, so someone who's very worried, sort of clinging on and will, you know, shout and scream and stamp their feet and want attention and need that reassurance. So, for instance, if your partner goes out on a night out, you are like, I need to know exactly where you are. I need to know what's going on. You've got to come home at this time. Or if you have an argument, you might think, oh my gosh, this is it. This is going to end. I can't cope with it. You might check phones, or you might be highly aware of their behavior, what they're doing, that sort of thing. So you need lots of reassurance that they're happy, so that makes you happy. Then you get your avoidant. So your avoidant is the person that when things get tough, I need to put up with this, I'm off. When things become a little bit too dependent on you. So maybe you're going to make like a commitment of going into a house together or something like that, that you get really, oh, I don't know about this. Like, I need my space. I need to be able to do what I want. You really value your independence.
Yeah.
You don't want people dependent on you. So sometimes they can be the people that become very distant in a relationship, that sort of check out quite easily. And then there is another one that is considered disorganized, which is a mix of anxious and avoidant. Now, that one, they say, comes from childhood trauma of real traumatic experiences.
Okay.
But what I would say is we all have 3 of them.
Yeah. While you're saying it, I'm like, oh, there's definitely, I've got cases of all 3,
Yeah.
you know? And can a person you're with hash out one of those? Like, for instance, could trigger one of those emotions in you?
Yeah.
Like if you, for instance, we talk about communication. If you, let's just say for a scenario, you went out on a night out and it said, oh, just give us a message before you come home. And you never send us that message. Or just let me know how you're getting on. Or if you know, like there's a behavior that you always did and you never did it all of a sudden, and that made you anxious then.
Yeah, 100%. So just that's a good example from my current relationship, that when we were first together, he would go out and not let me know he come home. And I was like, well, how do I know you're not dead? Yeah. I don't care what you're doing, who you're with. I just want to know you're alive.
It's a care factor.
That's all I want to know. So when he goes out now, he'll just ring me if he's on the way home and just let me know. Okay, cool. So I know what's going on. So different people can pull out different states of mind within you. You will naturally have one that you will tend towards. And you will have more of one particular one than the other, usually. So you would consider yourself as being more anxious or more of an avoidant, or quite happy in the middle of being secure. I myself was very much an avoidant, and even now I can pull into avoidant tendencies. So I do like my independence. I do like to be able to do what I want to do to an extent. That, you know, I don't like to have too much plans and structure. But that's just in my general life as well. Like
So you're spontaneous?
Very spontaneous.
But that's okay, right? Because I feel like
I think so.
I like to, of course you do. But I mean, like, for instance, if I was to go, okay, look, we're going to make plans this weekend, not sure what it is yet, and then you're like, hey, last minute, let's go camping for the weekend, or let's go for a hike. Is that a different scenario again, or is that actually...
No, that's perfect. So I like to have plans so I can break them. That's what we always say when we go on holidays. I like to have an itinerary so I can work against it. So it's not about not wanting anything. It's about needing... Sorry.
Get it up, Bill.
Job's my life. When I go on holidays, I like to have an itinerary so I can step away from it, you know? But that is me sort of avoiding it, but also I've become that secure person as well. So what I would say is I am now secure with avoidant tendencies. So if, for argument's sake, if say something happens that me and Adam don't really argue, but I'm not going to sit here and be like, I've got the best relationship ever, and we never argue, and we always love each other, and it's like hunky-dory, because...
I'll be calling you bullshit. I'll be calling bullshit right now.
All right. But if we do have a disagreement on something, it's that communication. But I know that I need to take 5. I need to not communicate straight away. Don't react from a heightened nervous system. And then you can come back and say, right, actually, this is how I feel and this is what's going on. Whereas old Angharad would just go, don't need to put up with this shit, I'm off. Thanks, bye. You know, I remember once being told by a family member that you are very good at just leaving a situation. And I honestly thought that was some sort of like superpower that I could...
Or like just drop a relationship and walk, you mean?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I honestly thought that was some sort of superpower that I could just leave.
Emotionally just detach.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. You know, and that does come from my childhood, because I always, and not so much now, but I would be completely lying if I said I don't believe it. But my whole sort of upbringing from my mum leaving was, if your mum can leave you, anyone can. So for me to safeguard myself,
it's like, okay,
you don't let yourself get that deep.
Yeah.
You've got to always have one foot out, just in case. So I could pivot.
So just in case you hurt me, I'm out before you get me.
Yeah. And so I wouldn't allow myself to get so invested into a relationship that they could hurt me. Wouldn't let them get so close that they could hurt me. I would always be just on that slight back foot.
And that becomes extremely hard then, because if you truly want to love and fall in love and be that, deep.
Yeah.
Is it harder then?
Yeah, really hard. I mean, I have to do a lot of work. I have to do a lot of work in understanding who I was and knowing who Angharad was, having that inner confidence, because I always thought I wasn't enough. Like, your mum can leave you, anyone can. Yeah. So, but that doesn't just go for a mum, it's any relationship. I know people have been married, their childhood sweethearts, they're married now, and then he's gone and had an affair. Your self-worth is on the floor, because everything that you are and were now isn't good enough. No. So you can then either become that, even if you were very secure in that relationship, you can either become avoidant of never wanting to be hurt again, or become very anxious of holding on to something so tight that, and then you suffocate the relationship.
Yeah, because you don't ever let that happen ever again.
Yeah.
So you just want to, that controlness kicks in then though, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it depends. These traumatic experiences can go in either way. Yeah. It can either push you to, because we all are secure when we start.
Yeah. You've got a clean slate.
Yeah, it's like when you see a kid and they're just running up and down and they're doing what they want and they eat what they want and they wear what they want and they don't care and they're all just having a great time. They're secure because they love themselves. If you think of a child looking in a mirror, they kiss themselves and they love themselves. And then we grow up and society or experiences happen that either push you into that anxious or into the avoidance. So you go either way, but we want to try and get back to that secure person that is confident in themselves, so we can then be comfortable to be in a relationship long term.
Pretty impressed with that. And it's amazing to think like that, right? Like that kid has basically got a clean slate. And one thing I love about kids is they are authentically sorry themselves. Yeah. They'll tell you if you've got something on your face or you got food in your teeth, or they'll tell you, you're such a kind person or you're a loving person. And I think one thing I try to take forward with me is I just want to tell people how they're doing so well. Yeah. Like they've got a really good aspect to them, because I do think we are, as people, quite hard on ourselves.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And we're so hard on ourselves that we'll always look at the negatives instead of the positives. And if we can just tap into that positive and just give it so much love, it will grow you as a person. It'll grow that confidence in you to know your worth and not settle for less. Yeah. I think if you can kind of really see the good in people, I think that's one thing when you're talking about this part of my brain's kicking in, is the fact that I always see the potential in someone. I know that's a dangerous thing to say, but I mean, if you're for instance, your coaching business, I'm like, wow, this coaching business can be massive. Yeah. And people on listen to this episode right now will be like, wow, I did not know any of this about my partner. I might have been in a relationship and married for 5-10 years, but I always wonder why whenever we communicate, he always goes into reserve mode, and I want that reassurance, and I never understood why. Yeah. So what we decide to do then is I get worked up, I react, he pulls away. Yeah. Yeah. And we're in this vicious cycle. Yeah. And there's obviously listen to this podcast, but then is there any books that someone could listen to? Or what? Oh, well, read.
Well, you can listen to them or read them. Depends on what the first book that I read was Attached. That was the first book that I read years and years ago. I still got it with all my notes, and I redo the test every so often. Yeah. But if you're really trying to understand your behavior, not just in relationships, it can be in any situation. If you want to understand you, I would first look at attached, so you can understand your behavior now, and then you can dig deep into sort of the whats and the whys.
Do you think it'd make dating a lot easier for you because you could find out what's a good connection for you or what's a good person?
Yeah, so I know that I have avoidant tendencies. So I know when I am in a relationship, I've got to really work on those. And that's not just in a relationship, really. That's just in life in general.
Socially, work-wise, friendships,
family. Everything, it's... that was really good for me to understand that. And then another really good book is Grit. So it's all about just why we need a bit of determination and grit in our lives, that we can give up very easy. And I suppose that went hand in hand with me being an avoidant, because I needed a bit more grit, that sticking something out, as opposed to thinking it's going to hurt. So, and it's that self-belief. So that's another really good book as well that people can listen to. And then it depends sort of on where you are in your journey. If you're in a bad relationship, or you've just left a bad relationship of cheating and things, a really good book is State of Affairs by Esther Perel. She's
amazing. French woman, is she like?
Yeah, she's amazing. Dating in Captivity was her first book, and then State of Affairs is a really good book as well. Understanding why people have an affair, because from someone who has been on the other side of it, I thought that it was all my fault, and
it's actually never to do with you.
Is actually understanding why he done that and why he continues to do that, and I could take things away from that of going, right, okay, if I continue doing this could trigger people doing that because I'm not emotionally available, but I didn't do anything. He was going to do that anyway.
Anyway, that's just his makeup.
That's just the way he is. And until he wants to change, he'll continue doing that. So I always say, I put a social post out yesterday that when you're with a narcissist, they're never going to come to your opinion. No, never going to, because they will only ever believe theirs. Until they want to change and they know they need to change, they're not going to. So you can love their potential all you want. Yeah,
because they'd have the best potential.
They have the best potential.
Sorry to interrupt, but like for people, like the buzzword of gaslighting and narcissists are very common words right now. Explain to someone, what is a narcissist?
So I do think they're the buzzwords at the minute, and they are... I don't know if they're overused. I think it's people know what they are now. So we can call a spade now. But a narcissist is, they only believe themselves, and they are the center of their world, and everything revolves around them. So, for instance, when you are communicating or arguing or having a discussion with a narcissist, they will, first of all, shut your opinion down and not want to talk. So a bit of stonewalling. And we know that is a sure, fast way of ending a relationship because it is a form of emotional abuse when we just don't communicate. So they'll shut it down. And then when you come back a second time to try and talk about this, they've then worked out what you're thinking. They have formulated their reply. They have told themselves that so many times that they believe it themselves. And then they can tell you that in so much detail, you will start to believe it yourself as well.
Because they've created a story, so they had time to think about it, to give it, wow.
They've made this such a great story that they believe it, and they will tell it to you so many times in such detail that you'll start saying, yeah, I actually completely misread that situation. My mind doesn't know itself, and actually... I'm being ridiculous. I'm going crazy. Yeah. But you are, because you're being told you are. Yeah. And you get told it so many times. And that is gaslighting. Is when you are told something so many times that you end up believing it to be true. You know? And it's a very difficult position to be in when you are being gaslit, because you can't see it coming. You can't, you can... if you are in that lust period, which is back to why it's so dangerous, when we are in that lust, you will take anything.
Yeah.
Because you're infatuated by that person. You want their attention, you'll do anything. So when they start making up these stories, they're going to go, oh yeah, okay. And unfortunately for people like us who are people pleasers, we'll sometimes go along with it.
Yeah,
because we don't hurt their feelings.
Yeah,
so in the beginning, you're like, oh, I know that's not quite true.
But I'll just pass that right now.
It's all right.
I'll let that slide.
And the more you allow to slide, the steeper that hill comes.
Yeah, I think then it's the thing of that awareness of taking score. Taking score of all these occasions where you've essentially misinterpreted the story or created this, and you're the crazy one, essentially, right?
Yeah.
And this kind of leads me now into the last question I want to ask you is, people go through breakups, common. Yes. What are the stages of a breakup for someone to be fully healed and move on with their life to go into the next stage of their life?
So a breakup is, when you go through heartbreak, it's the same, you've got to grieve the relationship. So it's the same as grief. And there's different stages. So you'll go through denial, you'll go through anger, you will go through bargaining, and then you will go through depression, and then you will get to acceptance. And I said then. Unfortunately, they don't go that way. They don't go through, I'm in denial. This isn't happening to me. This isn't happening. They're going to come back. And then seamlessly we'll go to, I'm going to be really angry about this now, and this is horrendous, and I can't believe they're doing this to me. And then I'll be sad, and then I'll get over it. It doesn't quite work like that. We will ping pong between these feelings and emotions. Yeah. But if we don't allow them to happen, so the old saying of to get over one, you've got to get under another, don't work. No. Soz.
Go to most guys who tell you to go.
Soz, guys.
Yeah. Guys will tell you that, though. Get back on the horse, mate.
Get back on the horse. No. Yeah. Because if we don't deal with our old trauma, we're never going to be secure to move on. So we will stay in that anxious avoidant attachment because we haven't grieved that situation and moved on. If we don't allow ourselves to feel those emotions, we're not going to move on. So the rebound relationship is when we're in denial. So, that was fine. Yeah, I'm over it. It's fine. And when we go straight into that relationship, we're in denial. We haven't processed it. We've moved on. It doesn't work.
I can definitely relate to that one. I've definitely done that one before. And all you're doing is really just taking that person through pain. A very good person through pain. I've done that before.
Yeah.
Why is it so common for people to go back to that person as well?
Because known pain is nicer and easier than unknown happiness. So when we break up with someone, if you were the person trying to keep in contact with them, then you're usually doing it for your own merit because you don't want to put yourself into that anger stage and you don't want to put yourself into the depression stage. So you'll keep yourself in the denial. If we keep ourselves in the denial, then we don't have to feel those big emotions. Yeah. I mean, you might also be a narcissist and you might think that you've not done anything wrong. Wow. So we will try and keep talking to them because do you know what the problem is? Yeah. And then once you go and find someone else, you stop talking to them because we're not going to put ourselves in the pain field. But the whole thing around non-contact is to allow yourself to go through all of those emotions. Sure. But it is so easy to go back because although subconsciously that there's problems there, we'll always think, if you think back to being in school, when you were in school, you thought it was rubbish. Yeah. But now you think back to school and you're like, that wasn't too bad. Yeah. It was all right. You always remember the good things. Yeah, you don't remember the bad things. It's our brain does that we look after ourselves. So we would rather pick known pain because we know how to deal with that. And we know that that's not killed us. Yeah. Might have tried to, but it didn't kill us. So we survived that. So it's all right. Yeah. we might not find any better. Because society has told us that we're 30 years old now and we need to get married and we need to have children. And you know, Susan down the street has told me.
Yeah. I think that's such an important one you just said then, though. Like, even reflect, family members do this one. You know, oh, well, you're getting older now. Or, you know, like what's wrong with, you know, what's wrong with you? Or is it that, is, you know, that was a good person. It's like, of course, you got 30 seconds of that person. I'm not saying they're a bad person, but it doesn't mean you're compatible either.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
So you've got to go through that non-contact to really...
Yeah.
And then even if you've done that stage of non-contact and you've grieved that relationship, it doesn't mean you can't go back to that person. But you have to grieve that relationship to be able to move on. You know, and what I would say is you can go back to old relationships if you communicate and deal with the problems. Yeah. But some people are just not meant to be together. And that's okay.
That's okay. Angharad, I've really enjoyed this episode.
Thank you. No, it's been great to see you.
And you in person, in the flesh.
I know.
I ask every guest this: what are you grateful for?
I am grateful for opportunities. At the moment, we all have opportunities. It's just whether we choose to take them. And I suppose I'm being a little bit greedy and taking them all.
Love that.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I'm grateful for obviously getting you in today and talking about relationships, confidence and growth. I'm grateful that you tolerated my mustache for this whole time.
Haven't mentioned it once.
I know, we haven't talked about it. Apologies to the bum fluff on my top lip, but Movember's here. And just, grateful for getting to know you, learning, growing from you. And I'm praying and hoping that more people will listen to this and understand what's a good relationship and what's something that's not meant to be as well.
Yeah, hopefully. I'll see you for round 2.
Thank you so much.